Hello, I'm Stuart Nullman. This is number 0856, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0856. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet Mark Morton, who is the author of The Headmasters. It's his science fiction debut, for which he is getting plenty of accolades for.
Most recently, and maybe most importantly, it was named the winner of the Arlene Barlin Award for Science Fiction and Fantasy. I knew I had written a good book, and I think probably every author hopes that's the case. So on the one hand, I wasn't surprised that other people, the jurors liked it. On the other hand, it really just depends on who the jurors are, because all four of the other nominees for that category wrote really good books. When I teach creative writing to students, I always say two things are needed. You have to be a good writer and you have to be lucky.
And we have another sci-fi writer. Pat Daly is the author of The Spark Chronicles, a near-future science fiction series. As a former NASA engineer and Air Force pilot, what impact does his former career have on his science fiction writing?
It's hugely impactful because as a lifelong reader of science fiction, it always bothers me when people get science or technology wrong. Now, it's one thing if the book or whatever I'm reading has been overcome by the current state of science. I'm perfectly willing to accept that. Where I struggle is when people just completely disregard the science. And I'm fine with that too, but let's not call it science fiction. Let's call it fantasy.
Science writer Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is back for his first visit of the new year, taking stock on what to look forward to in 2026. And yes, one of the things we'll be talking about still is Bennu, who may have some of the answers about the very beginning of life in our solar system.
What this gum-like material is saying to us, it's hinting at a very complex kind of prebiotic chemistry that it maybe existed throughout the solar system. While we're not talking about that we found life on Bennu, it does kind of reinforce the idea that a lot of the essential chemical ingredients for life were really widespread in the early solar system when Bennu first formed.
And of course, there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, dad joke theater, morning shower thoughts, something new called Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0856, is a regular contributor to this show, Stuart Nullman, whom you hear every 3 weeks with another edition of Book Banter. Thank you very much, Stuart, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. The U.S. Naval Forces Central Command in Bahrain sent 2 letters to Toronto-based Bonjibon sex store after adult items were intercepted by customs officials. Co-founder Grace Bennett received the warnings over 1 month last summer when packages were returned to her warehouse. The Pentagon letter stated, "During security screening by Bahrain Customs, pornographic materials and/or devices were identified in a package addressed to you," and warned pornographic materials or devices are not allowed in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Now, to be clear, Bonjibon didn't just send items to the Kingdom of Bahrain. They were ordered by someone and then forwarded to the military base there. Said Bennett,
"We just thought the whole thing was quite funny. from so many angles, especially, once again, my business partner is a vet, and how serious it all was. And additionally, we're just a business in Canada trying to get everyone their vibrators in a safe and consensual way.
Bennett noted that the customers were reimbursed. The Pentagon declined to comment. Meanwhile, what exactly did Bennett do with the official embossed terse letter from the U.S. government?
Not every day you get a letter as a Canadian from the Department of Defense for the United States. So, of course, we had to frame it in a rhinestone frame. It's just, I don't know if there was any other thing we could have done. I think it's quite funny. They wanted me to let people know to not order butt plugs if you're in Bahrain from us as a U.S. soldier. So I made a social media video about it, and it did quite well. There's many layers of hilarity to this that we can all just poke fun, and the situation is quite funny, while at the same time, I genuinely want everyone. I'm sad that they didn't get their order.
Well, one side benefit from all of this, it's not just automobiles, aluminum, Canadian oil, or just about everything else that is now tariffed by the United States. It's butt plugs.
We ship worldwide. We ship to the States quite a bit. And so specifically this year has definitely been challenging, shipping to the States as a Canadian business that sells primarily goods made in China with the tariffs from the US.
What, we can't make them here? Well, at least we still make hockey pucks. Anyway, now because of this worldwide attention, Bonjibon's business is booming. Christopher Millette of Morton County, Kentucky, faces auto theft charges after taking his ex-girlfriend's vehicle while she delivered their child at a Pikeville hospital on January the 2nd. Police say Millette arrived to witness the birth, but was asked to wait in the car's passenger seat due to hospital visitation rules. Security footage revealed Millette exited the passenger seat, moved to the driver's seat, and drove away with the vehicle. When his ex-girlfriend called asking about her car's location, Millette reportedly told her it was none of her business where her vehicle was, before ending the call. Authorities arrested Millette the following day and charged him with auto theft. I think I know why he's her ex. I also am going out on a limb to say that I think we already know that, even at this early date, he won't be Father of the Year. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, people are prop betting on the return of Jesus Christ in high numbers. Last year, there were $2.5 million in bets on the Messiah making a comeback. Religious-based bets date back to the 17th century, but the payout this year would be huge. There's currently a 2% chance, according to Polymarket, an American cryptocurrency-based prediction market headquartered in Manhattan, and that means for every dollar you bet on no, Jesus will not be coming back this year, you would win 0.027 cents. So you'd have to bet $4 in order to win 1 cent. But if you bet yes and Jesus does appear on earth, you'd win $50 for every dollar you bet. Of course, you probably have bigger issues than the $50 you've won if Jesus is walking the earth.
South Park Elementary presents The Birth of Jesus.
You know, I do like to occasionally bet, and I do play the lotteries, but I question the people who are taking these bets. They must be, the devil's advocate?
Let me give you a little inside information about God. God likes to watch. He's a prankster.
Anyway, let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Mark Morton is back on the program. Last summer, we had him on talking about the re-release of his book, Cupboard Love, a dictionary of culinary curiosities. Mark mostly writes nonfiction books, but 2 years ago, we had him on talking about his science fiction debut called The Headmasters. The book has done very well, so we thought we'd catch up with Mark to find out just how well it's doing. Mark joins us from Kitchener, Ontario via Riverside.com. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very, very much for talking to us once again, especially about a book that we've already talked about. But
Yeah.
you have done so well with this book. Tell us what's happened with the book since its initial release.
Well, sort of things big and small, on sites like Goodreads and, the Amazon .ca and .com review sites. It's been getting really, really good reviews, like averaging 4.5 to 4.8 or so, which I'm really pleased about. It's been getting some really great reviews in media, like Canadian newspapers, a couple of American newspapers, I think, and most recently, and maybe most importantly, it was named the winner of the Arlene Barlin Award for Science Fiction and Fantasy, and that's the national award for that category, science fiction and fantasy in Canada.
Did any of that success surprise you?
Well, I'm pleased with my book. I knew I had written a good book, and I think probably every author hopes that's the case. So on the one hand, I wasn't surprised that other people, the jurors, liked it. On the other hand, it really just depends on who the jurors are, because all four of the other nominees for that category wrote really good books. And I always tell, like when I teach creative writing to students, I always say two things are needed. You have to be a good writer and you have to be lucky. And sometimes we can make our luck to some extent. But I feel both gratified at, I think, having my book recognized as being a good book, a good science fiction book. But I also feel lucky that the particular jurors on the jury this time round thought my book was the best. In terms of the impact that it's had on other media, I guess where I noticed that is with social media platforms. Like I'm really noticing a sudden uptick in the number of people who are coming to my website and who are finding me on Facebook and sending me emails and things like that. So that's great. I mean, on the other hand, it means there's more to keep up with and less time for me to work on current writing projects. But it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Since you've written so much nonfiction in the past, was writing fiction kind of a relief or a release for you?
I would say it was a relief in this sense. Like I wrote all four of my nonfiction books, starting in 1996 and going up to about 2006, I guess, those 10 years. And then my wife and I adopted four older kids, so we had to put our writing careers on hold. She's also a writer. She's a poet. And so for 15 years, we didn't do any writing, really. It was only in the past couple of years that we've returned to that. And I kind of felt like maybe everybody is like this, but as you get older, you can feel your memory beginning to change. That more often you go into rooms and you go, what in the world did I come in here for? Or trying to remember names of our dogs and things like that. So I realized that I probably didn't have the kind of analytic memory anymore that I needed to write those nonfiction books, because those nonfiction books were very sort of fact heavy, a lot of information in them. And so it felt like a relief that I wasn't going to put myself into that position of trying to write that kind of nonfiction book again. And it was also maybe not a relief, but it just felt like, when you step into water, let's say a lake on a beach, and the water is just sort of the perfect temperature. It kind of felt like that, because I felt like, fiction. I feel like I've been kind of craving writing fiction for a long time. So it felt very natural to step into the waters of fiction.
Well, now that you've experienced it, did you feel, or do you now feel, that you should have done something in fiction a long time ago, or do you feel that it was just the right time to do that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My wife and I sometimes talk about that for both of us. I think where I've settled on this is, if I had started writing fiction 15 or 20 years ago, I don't doubt that I would have written some novels or collections of short stories and things like that. But I just don't think they would be as good, or maybe they wouldn't have the depth that I think my fiction has now. Those subsequent years, especially years spent raising kids, adopted kids that had PTSD and various other challenges, I think they expanded my sense of what it means to be a person, how we should interact with each other, all kinds of things like that. So I like to think that those years of raising our kids, which, were wonderful years in and of themselves, but I think they were also very beneficial to me in becoming a better writer of fiction.
Do you feel that living experiences enhances your fiction writing?
It certainly does I certainly feel that for me. Not everybody is like that. I can think of lots of authors of science fiction and other genres who began to write, very early in their 20s and were very successful, and their books continue to be seen as really great books. But for me, I think I really needed those years of raising kids to help me become I hope I can say a person with more depth than I was before.
When I last spoke to you, or actually 2 years ago when we talked about the headmasters, when I talked to you then, you said that you had already written a second fiction novel called The Changelings,
Yeah.
but it hadn't received a publisher yet. What's the status of that one?
Yeah, what I did is I sent it out to some agents, didn't get any bites from them, and so I thought, maybe I should take another look at this. So I actually didn't look at it for a couple of months, and then I picked it up again and read it, perhaps with more objectivity, and I rewrote the first third of it or so. Then I kind of got distracted into beginning to write a third novel. Because I find that the kind of mental headspace that it takes to be emailing agents or publishers, doing sort of the quote-unquote business work of writing, is very different from the headspace that's needed to write fiction. And so I've never been able to combine them at the same time. So that second novel, I'm just beginning again to look for an agent or a publisher. I think I've got another leg up this time because my friend, I think I can call him my friend, I've only known him for a couple of years now, but Robert Sawyer, who's recognized as sort of the dean of science fiction in Canada, he read the manuscript just recently, just a couple of weeks ago, of my second novel, my second still unpublished novel. He really, really liked it, and he wrote me a really enthusiastic blurb for it. So I think I'll include that blurb when I approach agents and book publishers, and I think that will give me a leg up. I certainly hope so.
Doesn't the headmasters, the success of the headmasters, kind of plow the path ahead of you for you?
Yes, it does, but then again, publishing now is so different than it was 30 years ago. With the advent, well, I'll just name two things. One is the advent fairly recently, like the past 5 years or so, of greater ease in self-publishing through platforms like Amazon Kindles, what's it called? Amazon Direct, I think. So anybody can upload their manuscript and have it turned into an ebook and have it sold on Amazon. Which is great and not so great in different ways. And then more recently, the advent of AI. There's all kinds of people who are trying to produce books using AI and putting them on Amazon and trying to sell them. Sometimes they're even more nefarious, like they'll put into AI something like, write a collection of short stories similar to so-and-so, particular author. And then they will publish it on Amazon, and they will put the author's the real author's name on the book, but they'll change it slightly. Maybe they'll change it from Smith to Smythe or something like that. So it's easy for people to mistake, the genuine article from these false gods, so to speak. Anyways, I guess what I'm saying is that it's hard to get noticed in this current market. Because of AI and self-publishing and things like that. It's still pretty easy, or it's still much easier with regard to nonfiction. If you write a nonfiction book and you've got a very specified market, you can much more easily find a publisher.
Well, congratulations. I mean, I don't need to congratulate you because you had success with this book. But congratulations on the success of this book.
Thank you.
2 years running, and we're still talking about it. The book is called The Headmasters. It's written by Mark Morton. And thank you once again, Mark, for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Thanks so much, Peter. Really enjoyed it.
Mark Morton, author of The Headmasters. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0856, and you'll find the link to Mark's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. Also, I referenced the last time we talked about The Headmasters with Mark. That was 2 years ago. That was in March of 2024 on show number 0760. You can go back and listen to that. And the re-release of his nonfiction book, Cupboard Love, A Dictionary of Culinary Curiosities, was what we talked about on show number 0829 back in July of last year. You can check that out too. Links for both of those episodes will be on this week's show page on the website. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
And now, Dad Joke Theater.
What type of bear is toothless? A gummy bear!
Join us again for another Stuff File program, Dad Joke Theater. There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like. But the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestuffileprogram.
I'm standing and I'm fired up. For Canada. Hey, this is Sean Majumder, and I am so excited to have repatriated, self-deported from America back to Canada. This is where I want to raise my girls. This is where I want to do comedy and tell Canadian stories. Even saying the word Canada gets me fired up. Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada for Canada.
Coming to you from the outskirts of sanity, this is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
And still to come in the program, we'll have a morning shower thought, plus there is indeed an idiot of the day coming your way. We also have something new, which is Sir Dudley's Poetry Corner. And of course, we have much more in Stuff File News right here, right now. A bank in Woodsfield, Ohio, called the Monroe County Sheriff's Office to report that a drive-up customer sent a baggie containing an unknown substance through the pneumatic tube system, then drove off. Deputies say the baggie contained a crystal-like substance consistent with methamphetamine. Apparently, the teller also got enough information to identify the customer. Deputies caught up with 46-year-old Jason Smith a few miles away. A police canine alerted them to other alleged drugs and drug-related materials in Smith's truck. He was arrested. Said Sheriff Derek Norman, illegal drugs don't belong in bank drive-thrus. but they can be turned in at the sheriff's office. No charges, no handcuffs, just help. We'd much rather safely take them off the street than see another unexpected deposit. Yeah, well, cops give a lot more interest to such things than banks. A lawsuit was just filed on December the 9th for something that happened earlier in the year in March. An Ocala, Florida man is suing Outback Steakhouse after a trip to a restaurant's bathroom took an unfortunate turn. The lawsuit says the man, identified as Michael Green, visited one of the chain's restaurants in Ocala back on March 26th. At the time, Green went to go use the restroom, but while he was seated on the toilet in the handicap stall, the toilet suddenly shattered and collapsed beneath him. As a result, the lawsuit argues Green suffered severe bodily injury. Now, Green is accusing the restaurant of negligence and failing to maintain the toilet properly. The lawsuit seeks over $50,000 in damages.
Outback's going full-on Aussie, starting at a down-under price of just $16.99.
Perhaps during this delicate lawsuit, they should refrain from using the term down under. Yeah. We're just about to get to our second guest here on the Stuff File program. But before we do that, no doubt you've heard my lifelong manservant, Sir Dudley Piddly Haversham Sedgwick Smythe, on the show. Well, he's been clamoring for more airtime, so to placate his testy mood, we've initiated a poetry corner for him on the show. So without further ado, here is the first installment.
The Stuff File presents Sir Dudley Piddly Haversham Sedgwick Smythe's Poetry Corner.
There once was a pharaoh named Tut, whose sarcophagus wasn't quite shut. Wrapped up like a mummy, his skin became gummy, and you couldn't tell his face from his butt.
Heaven help us all. By the way, this segment, along with Dad Joke Theater and Morning Shower Thoughts, will now all be on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our new account on TikTok. You've all been warned. Anyway, let's get to our next guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Pat Daly is a former NASA engineer and Air Force pilot. He's also the author of The Spark Chronicles, which is a near-future science fiction series of novels. Pat joins us from Houston, Texas via Riverside.com. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Peter. How are you today?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for taking the time to be on the program with us. When did you decide to start writing these novels, and was it always your intention that it was going to be a series?
I developed the intention to write these probably 2017, 2018. I had no intention of them being a series. It didn't occur to me until I wrote the last sentence on the last page of Spark, the first book, that I decided, well, there's way more to this story that I haven't talked about. So that kind of launched the second, third, and fourth.
When someone starts to write, they don't know necessarily if they're going to get a publisher or how successful the book is. So were you hoping upon hope that, as you said, when you got to the end of the first story, that there would be an audience for a subsequent series of books?
I was exceptionally hopeful. And then those hopes were crushed mercilessly as I spent the next 6 months querying, trying to find a publisher from one of the big publishing houses. And I ended up finding eventually a smaller publishing company, and it was a great fit.
Now, I said in the introduction that it's set in the near future. So how far ahead are we in the Spark Chronicles?
I'd say based on the state of technology today, we are within 10 years of being able to do virtually everything I talk about in the series.
And why did you set it, again, 10 years ahead? Why not in the present or in the distant future?
Well, I eliminated the present because I wanted to make it as much hard sci-fi as I could. So be faithful to science as we know it. And then why not way into the future? I thought I could have a more believable story if people could see the technology I was talking about within our grasp. And so I said it then and there, and that did cause me some pressure because I had to keep writing fast enough to stay ahead of technology, but it's been a good journey.
I mentioned that you are a NASA engineer or former NASA engineer and Air Force pilot. How much of that background weighs on the Spark Chronicles?
Oh, it's hugely impactful because as a lifelong reader of science fiction, it always bothers me when people get science or technology wrong. Now, it's one thing if the book or whatever I'm reading has been overcome by the current state of science. I'm perfectly willing to accept that. Where I struggle is when people just completely disregard the science. And I'm fine with that too, but let's not call it science fiction. Let's call it fantasy.
Gotcha. So tell us the story in the first book of Spark.
Okay. All right. Well, the story starts out with a young man who has been orphaned through a series of tragic events, and he is living in foster care. Now, along the way, he has developed some pretty significant phobias because of the situation he was living in before his mom died. She was a hoarder, and garbage never got taken out, so rats infested the house, and he ended up sleeping with a knife. So he would always have a means of protection for himself and his mom against a creature he imagined that lived within the walls, because at night he would always hear the little scratching of the rats in the walls. So his mom dies. He's now in foster care. He's in a new foster home, having bounced around a few, and he is still sleeping with a knife, even though logically he knows he's in a safer, cleaner environment. But sometimes the things that warp us when we're younger stick with us later in life. And so he wakes up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and as he's walking down the hall to go to the bathroom, he's still holding his knife. Well, new foster mom comes out of her bedroom to see what he's doing up, and she sees him with the knife, starts screaming, is certain he's going to kill everyone in the house, and so he runs. He runs away. He's in a t-shirt and his boxer shorts, barefoot, carrying this big knife, and he runs because he doesn't want to go back to foster care. He just wants to get away. And so where he chooses to eventually run to is a place called Solar Prime Augmented Reality Park. And that's set just outside of Barstow, California. And it relies heavily on solar power to make its money. And it's kind of a Disney-sized theme park, but it's all augmented reality. And augmented reality blends virtual reality and actual reality so that you can see virtual creatures set against a real background. And while he's there, he discovers that there is far more to this park than what the average park goer sees. He ends up connecting with a young woman who goes by the name of Feral Daughter, and together they take on the quests of the park, but also they end up involved in some very real world problems as techno-terrorists come in and want to steal the technology behind the AI that runs the park. And that's kind of it.
Your protagonist, he's only 16 years old, correct?
Correct.
Where did the genesis for this story come from? Was it from anybody in your past or even your past?
A little bit, yeah. The character comes from is a fairly modified version of a troubled young man that I knew, and my wife and I were trying to help him and his family over a period of years, who actually lived in a hoarding situation, had rats infesting it, and did in fact sleep with knives. The rest of the backdrop came from a game. I've got two daughters, and at the time they were playing this game called Pokemon Go. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I wanted to keep current with what my kids were doing. So I start playing this game as I'm walking the dog in the morning, and as you walk along, little Pokemon creatures pop up, but it uses the phone's camera to show the real background, and then it imposes a Squirtle or Pidgey or one of the little Pokemon characters over the real background. And I thought, this is the future of gaming, because virtual reality games are dangerous. Dangerous in that when you sever all connection to reality, all sorts of nasty things can happen. Like you no longer know where your TV is. You don't know where your cat is. And so you can end up, knocking a TV off stand, stepping on a cat, hitting a kid, none of which is generally considered good. But the idea of wrapping the virtual and the real into this thing called augmented reality seemed like a perfect way. If I had plenty of money, I'd build this theme park, because I think it would be such a blast.
Because many authors envision the idea of their work being on a small or big screen, would the 5-minute pitch for a television show or a movie based on Spark would be Tron meets and whatever the meets would be?
I haven't used Tron as an example, although that would be a pretty good tie-in. What I tend to say is that this is Ready Player One meets Westworld.
That's a good elevator pitch. And when did all the books come out? I mean, what is the situation right now with Spark? And I believe the two other books are Fire and Embers.
That's correct.
What is their release date?
They are all published. They're all available on Amazon. And there's actually a novella that goes along with it called Orkland. And so all four of them are available today on Amazon. The last one came out at the end of 2025, and audiobooks are also available on Audible. We're still cleaning up the final files for Embers, but that should be available on Audible, I'm going to say certainly by February 1st.
And are you hoping to write more of the Sparks Chronicle or the Spark Chronicle?
I haven't closed that door completely, but I think any author gets kind of tired of one particular universe or set of stories, and I had a couple others scratching around in my brain that I wanted to get down on paper, so I've moved away from it for now. And the one I'm writing for a little older audience now, and it's I call it Stranger Things meets Cocoon.
Wow. I'd be interested in hearing about that one.
Well, I can give you a little bit more on that if you want to hear it, but the book probably won't hit the stands maybe late this year. But I'm about a third of the way through it.
Well, would you come back on the show later on in the year when that one is available?
Absolutely.
Great. Pat, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
My pleasure. It's been a lot of fun, and I enjoy your show. I found out through listening to it that we have a love in common, and that is the fabulous actress Stephanie Powers.
Ah, yes. I have a deep, deep crush on Stephanie Powers. Again, thank you very much for being on the program.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Pat Daly, author of the science fiction series of novels called The Spark Chronicles. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0856, And you'll find the link to Pat's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his books directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Giving you something to think about. This is Morning Shower Thoughts.
When people make fun of you for being short, they're just saying that the worst part of you is that there isn't more of you.
Morning Shower Thoughts from the Stuff File program.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
Here are two of the many glowing reviews that Michael Liebling has received for his novel The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. Arabella magazine says,
I couldn't put it down. I want more books like this, and I want more books written by Michael Liebling.
Best-selling author Nicholas Kaufman says,
The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife is sharp, funny, thrilling, and endlessly original.
The only unsolved mystery here is why you haven't read it yet. The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife is available wherever you find books.
Latitude 47 degrees 14 minutes north. Longitude 84 degrees 39 minutes west. Location Montreal, Canada. This is the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. Now, the Stuff File presents Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. It's radio that's out of this world.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy, is a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and the author of National Geographic's Backyard Guide to the Night Sky, and also National Geographic's Stargazer's Atlas, The Ultimate Guide to the Night Sky. And first of all, Andrew, Happy New Year to you and yours, and what can we look forward to in 2026?
Yeah, Happy New Year to you and all the listeners out there, all the budding sky watchers looking for cool things to see this coming up year. And there's lots of really things, especially if you're a beginner sky watcher and you're looking for some easy stuff to see that is fun for the whole family. There's a lot of things coming up in the pipeline. You know, one of the top things that people do talk about is, of course, meteor showers. Meteor showers are really fun to see. You don't need telescopes or binoculars. And if you can get out to a dark sky, you can see lots of these little pebbles that are floating in space, zipping through the upper atmosphere, burning up and causing a wonderful light show. And really the two best showers this year, and thankfully because of the moon being out of the way, are going to be the Perseid meteor shower that's centered around August 12th and 13th, and the Geminids that occur on December 13th and 14th. These are the best showers of the year, and they're predicted to peak on those dates when there's no real moon interfering with the views. So you could see upwards, we're talking with both showers of about 100 shooting stars per hour. These are really some of the most dramatic sky watching events that you can see. Now, beyond those meteor showers, there's also eclipses. And there's really two kinds of eclipses that happen. One that is where you have what's called a lunar eclipse, and another that's the solar eclipse, where the sun actually hides behind the moon, and the other one is where the lunar eclipse is where the moon hides in the Earth's shadow and turns blood red orange. Now, you'll get a chance to see on March 3rd, mark that down on your calendar, and very short time on March 3rd, in the overnight period, the moon will enter Earth's shadow, and it'll turn this blood orange color. Now, the best places to see this event with the lunar eclipse on March 3rd is across the Pacific Basin, Asia, and even particularly Western Americas will be in a very good position to see the lunar eclipse on March 3rd. And beyond that, there's also a really nice solar eclipse. If you're up for traveling and you're not in the path of a solar eclipse where the sun will appear to hide behind the the moon. This is a really a spectacular event, and with the solar eclipse, you'll be able to see this happen on August 12th. And the best places to see it are places like Spain and Portugal. And a partial eclipse looks like where the sun has a bite taken out of it. You can be anywhere across Europe really for that, or Africa, and even the eastern parts of North America will be able to see a little bit of a bite taken out of the sun. Now remember, when you're looking at the sun, you got to be sure to wear proper eclipse glasses to view the solar eclipses safely. That's because the sun's light can actually damage the eyes. So you want to make sure that you're all set up for that. Beyond that, in the next few short months, we also have lots of planetary things that are happening. There's a planetary alignment happening in the early morning skies in the last week of February. You'll see up to 6 planets in what we like to call in astronomy circles a planet parade, so we'll have the early morning skies hosting 6 planets that are visible in the same part of the night sky. Saturn is going to be close to the horizon, while Venus and Mercury are going to appear to rise above the sun, and Neptune and also will be next to Saturn. You'll need a little telescope to see that ice giant, but it's really going to be spectacular to be able to see that. And if you want to see something even more spectacular, mark May 19th. After sunset on the May 19th, you'll have the crescent moon sandwiched between Jupiter and Venus, 2 of the brightest planets that are visible to the naked eye at any one time. So on May 19th, that's going to be visually spectacular to see a crescent moon right in between 2 bright star-like planets, and you won't be able to miss that. So those are, I would say, my top picks for next year.
Well, speaking of the planets, as you know, and some of our listeners know, I will say to anyone the enjoyment, the awe of seeing a planet through a telescope. I remember when you took my nephews and I to the Arboretum and we used your telescope and we looked at Saturn for the first time. So, and that is still awe-inspiring. So I want to know, because I understand that this year you can see Jupiter through a telescope that really well, and perhaps you should give a sort of a primer on Jupiter and viewing that through a telescope.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about Jupiter and Saturn. These are 2 of the largest planets in the solar system. I mean, we're talking, you could fit over 1,000 of our planet Earths inside Jupiter. That's how big it is. And Saturn, with its really, famous rings that surround it, if you would put that next to Earth, the rings would stretch out between Earth and the moon. That's how big these objects are in the sky that we're looking at through telescopes. And, while you can see both Saturn and Jupiter with the naked eye, like I was just describing, seeing these things as star-like objects, bright star-like objects they look like, with nothing more than just the eye. It's amazing, despite them being so far away, hundreds of millions of kilometers away. With a telescope, you get to see a lot more details. So when it comes to Jupiter, so this year in 2026, Jupiter is at its best in the first 2 months of the year, I would say, especially the first month, January. That's when it reaches what's called opposition. That means it rises at sunset and stays up all night. So it really is perfect viewing time for Jupiter. It's at its biggest and brightest in Earth skies. And it actually shines brighter than most stars in the night sky. And you can't miss it rising in the east after sunset in January. And if you have a telescope, you'll be able to see on Jupiter cloud bands. You can actually see what look like stripes that transect the small little circle that you're seeing in the sky, the little disk. Those are huge cloud systems. Many of these clouds are bigger than our entire planet Earth. And so you can spot them through a small telescope. And also, you'll notice right away when you're looking at Jupiter is 4 little dots that are beside the planet. And they're in different configurations from night to night. That's because these are the moons of Jupiter. The 4 largest moons, called the Galilean moons, it's named after Galileo, the famous Italian astronomer who first spotted them 400 years ago in a small telescope. You could actually see them. And if you keep looking at them for a few hours, let's say, in one night, you'll actually see some movement in the Galilean moons as they circle the giant planet Jupiter. So it's really cool. And then when it comes to Saturn, well, Saturn is also amazing. I think it's even more of what I like to call a wow planet. And Peter, as you were alluding to before, I remember going out with you and with your nephews looking at it, and it never fails to inspire people of any age, because you have those iconic rings that look like it's literally something like out of a National Geographic magazine, photo spread. It does actually look like that with a small telescope. Even the smallest of telescopes will show you the iconic rings of Saturn. You can actually see the cloud bands on the disk itself, and inside the rings, you can actually see some gaps between the rings, natural gaps, these dark divisions. And even a modest telescope with nothing more than, say, a 4-inch wide mirror telescope or a lens that's maybe even 2 inches wide aperture will get you there, and you'll be able to see your first sights of Saturn's rings through a telescope. It's totally unforgettable. It's really kind of like the aha moment that inspires countless new observers.
And you mentioned the National Geographic pictures of Saturn. And I've always said that it doesn't make a difference how great the resolution is of a picture, or if you go to a planetarium, there is nothing that compares to actually seeing Saturn through a telescope with your very own eyes. I guess it's very similar to people who say it's one thing to see a picture of the Grand Canyon, but it's breathtaking to actually be there. So I say the same thing about Saturn. Now, very quickly, because we're just running out of time, everyone does New Year's resolutions every year, except me. I've never done a New Year's resolution, so I'm always going to be talking year in and year out about Bennu. So I understand that NASA discovered that space gum and sugars are crucial to life on Bennu. What's that about?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting story. So just a little backdrop for folks why we keep talking about Bennu. It's a near-Earth asteroid. That means it's a space rock that crosses Earth's path around the sun. It's roughly about a half a kilometer wide. That means it's about the size of a few city blocks. And it orbits around the sun every year or so. And scientists think Bennu actually broke off from a larger asteroid maybe hundreds of million years ago, and it comes from the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And we've actually have taken samples from this potentially hazardous asteroid that could potentially one day maybe hit our planet. It's not going to for at least the next few centuries, so we can relax. But it becomes very interesting when we look at the samples that we've brought back from this asteroid, and they found sugars that are linked to RNA. Now, what's really interesting is RNA. This is what many researchers think came before DNA in early life's evolution. So this is something very interesting because it's a chemistry that's surprising. So they found these sugars like ribose, which is linked to RNA, and also glucose. And these are important molecules in life's chemistry. So like glucose, this is the first time that glucose has ever been found on an extraterrestrial material. And this is really cool because glucose is a primary fuel source for many forms of life. Also, when you're talking about this gum, it's sort of like a polymer-like gum, which was also found. Never before seen kind of material in asteroid samples. What this gum-like material is saying to us, it's hinting at a very complex kind of prebiotic chemistry that it maybe existed throughout the solar system. Okay, so why while we're not talking about that we found life on Bennu, it does kind of reinforce the idea that a lot of the essential chemical ingredients for life were really widespread in the early solar system when Bennu first formed. So kind of, I guess what it does is it kind of is a boost, this finding for kind of origin of life science. And it kind of gives us an idea of where we want to do more sample return missions on places like Bennu.
Well, now there's another reason for me to be afraid of Bennu outside of it crashing into the Earth in some time in the future. It's the fact that there are sugars on it, and I'm a diabetic, so
stay away from Bennu.
Bennu is not a friend of mine. Anyway, thank you very, very much, Andrew, for taking the time to be on the program with us once again and each month. And we look forward to what you have to share with us in February, sir.
My pleasure, and I wish everyone clear skies.
Andrew Fazekas, the Night Sky Guy. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com to the page for this show, which is show number 0856, and you'll find links to Andrew's site to get your own personal autographed copy of his books. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. And boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. This Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
A stolen car investigation in Delaware led to an arrest after authorities say the suspect called police himself. Police were called for reports of a stolen Hyundai Sonata. Police say the owner reported leaving his car running and unattended outside when it was taken. The next day, police were contacted by 21-year-old Keon Baxter, who claimed he stole the car. Baxter told police the stolen Hyundai had been towed and he wanted to retrieve items he left inside. Baxter was later taken into custody on the same street where the Hyundai was stolen. The stolen car was recovered from a local towing company. Baxter was charged with a felony count of theft of a motor vehicle. Now, why, oh why, if you stole a car and it was then towed away, would you call the cops to retrieve items from the car you stole? One reason, and one reason only. You're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0856. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestuffile.com. And once again, Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0856. Email me at peter@thestuffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including kdxradio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WNRHLP-FM in Newport Richey, Florida, KZZHLP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. I'm Peter's lifelong manservant, Sir Dudley Piddly Havisham Sedgwick Smythe. It has been brought to my attention that I may have been a little harsh where Peter is concerned. I regret that my actions have been so generously misinterpreted, and trust this expression of concern will suffice where understanding did not.